Welcome to NISTS Annual Conference number 16 in Atlanta, Georgia. We are extremely excited to invite you into this world of transfer. My name is Janet Marling, and I serve as the Executive Director of the National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students. And every year we bring together professionals from across the country to come together and talk about transfer in an immersive culture. And we couldn't be more pleased that all of you have come to spend your time with us today, especially in spite of this really ugly weather outside. We're missing a few of our colleagues, so just know that people will be coming in and out as they arrive and get themselves settled. So once again, we're really glad you're here. NISTS focuses on educating and empowering professionals so that transfer students can thrive. Transfer students are at the heart of the work we do, and figuring out ways to support them is very important. That can happen in three veins as we see it. We look at it from a research perspective, we look at it from an education perspective, and an advocacy perspective. And as you think about how interwoven those three facets are in transfer, there are lots of different ways that we can discuss this very complex issue. And throughout the next 2.5 days, we're going to be looking at those challenges facing our transfer students, those challenges facing us as transfer professionals, and the successes that we are achieving on our campuses across our states and hopefully across the nation. There are 500 strong of us shortly in this room spending time together talking about transfer. You all are representing 43 states this year, including Hawaii and also the District of Columbia. So we are really feeling as if we are bringing a national representation to this thing called transfer. As you know, transfer traverses our functional areas, and this just gives you a little bit of a sense of the collective body that we've brought together here to really study transfer. And when we think of NISTS, the study piece is really important. And for some of you, when you hear study, immediately you might think research, and yes, that's a part of it. But I really see us as learning collaboratively together. I intend to be a student throughout this entire conference today, learning more about these functional areas. So I see all of us. I had the opportunity to come together with some of our new professional colleagues, and I can't tell you how much I learned from them. I was taking notes during our pre-conference session today simply because I love being a student of transfer, and at every turn there's an opportunity to gain some new information, and that's what we're all about today. We have a little bit of a change in our itinerary today. Many of you are coming here expecting to listen to Michelle Asha Cooper. Unfortunately, she was unable to join us due to illness, but you know what? Sometimes things that are unexpected turn out better than you ever could have imagined. And I'm going to ask three gentlemen to come up to the stage, and we are going to be introducing our speaker. And the two folks that I'm asking to introduce our speaker today are Mr. Alfred Herrera. Please come forward, one of our advisory board members. And then also Dr. Steve Handel, if you will come forward as well. And they are going to do a fantastic job of introducing to you Mr. James Montoya. So after you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. So in case you don't know, I'm Alfred. Where are you?
I'm back here.
He's Steve. So it's really exciting to see all of you here at this conference representing transfer, because transfer is the answer. And transfer is where it's at, and we have all kinds of other stuff. But really, we're here to introduce someone who I think you'll enjoy hearing from, someone that I've known for a very long time, very, very long time. Actually, I think I was 3, and he was 6. But actually, early in my career at UCLA, when I started in the early 80s, I was fortunate enough to meet Jim while he was on one of his university trips. I believe he was at Oxy, or maybe Stanford, or maybe, no, I'm kidding. But I had the privilege of attending a meeting where he was at, and I was extremely impressed with his comments focused on higher education and the need for us to really serve the students who come from the communities that we represent. So in my long career at UCLA, I've had the fortune of working with Steve and Jim, because he's back or whatever now, but we'll talk about that later. In any case, Jim has been a champion for students from all communities, but particularly from underrepresented communities. His work at the College Board, and I'm not going to read the bio, you can read that. I really wanted to talk to you from a personal level, from the heart, because he's been inspiring to me in the work that he has done and how he's led the College Board efforts to increase access and opportunity. In 2000, I had the pleasure of being invited to a diversity colloquium that the College Board sponsored, where they brought in representatives from the White House initiative on increasing access for Latinos and African Americans and so forth. And there was a number of national leaders in the room discussing education, higher education for underrepresented students. From that came a lot of different initiatives, one of which were the diversity conferences that the College Board sponsors, Prepárate, A Dream Deferred, NISTS. And I had the fortune of working with Prepárate for 10 years, working very closely with Jim and all of the efforts of his staff. So I've been able to stay connected with him, and I don't know anybody who's more committed and more passionate about higher education and access than Jim, because it's part of who he is and his heart. And as you hear his presentation and a little bit about his story, I want you to remember that it's part of who we are. And the reason that we do this work on transfer is really because we're committed to it, because we know it's the right thing to do. It's a social justice issue, it's an equity issue, it's an important issue that we need to make sure transfer remains at the forefront of all of the efforts in higher education. And with the recent comments by those who will remain unnamed about the role of community college, it's even more important for us to push transfer to the top of the list. So I'm delighted to welcome Jim, and I'll let Steve fill in his comments, and then we'll have him come up. So thank you.
Well, I'll be very brief. I've known Jim for a very long time as well, and when we called, actually when Alfred called him, frankly, over the weekend, of course, he leaped at the opportunity to be able to be here. This is a man, however, who is a very, very busy one. He's the Senior Vice President for the College Board, a very large organization. He oversees higher education. He's the Secretary of the corporation, and yet he still said, yes, I can do this. I can change my schedule, and I can be here on a moment's notice. So we thank you for that, Jim. I will only add my own personal note that I've been with the University of California for a very long time, and about 15 years ago, Jim approached me about perhaps having the College Board focus more on community colleges and transfer, and I became the first director of the National Office of Community College Initiatives. But it was Jim's vision. It was Jim's idea to take an organization that had been primarily focused on four-year institutions and really think way ahead of the game that community colleges and this transfer function, however we define it, is going to be part and parcel of what America is going to be all about. If we're interested in access, if we're interested in educating our students, we know how pivotal transfer is. He's an advocate, has always been an advocate, and so with that, I will invite him to the stage. Please greet him as we do, as one of the foremost leaders of access and equity in higher education in America. Jim?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very sweet. Thank you. There's water under there. Oh, great. Thank you. Alfred is letting me know that there is water. I think he expects me to be talking very quickly, and I will, because I only have 30 minutes, and Steve, you're going to give me a 10-minute signal to share lots of information. Now, when I got the phone call indicating that your keynoter was ill, I looked at the title, Telling Our Stories, Telling Our Truths, Illuminating the Path of Today's Transfer Students. And I couldn't resist the opportunity to be here with you. One of the things you're going to learn about me very quickly, although you two made me sound very old, as if I've been around a really long time, I'm a really firm believer in intergenerational leadership. And for me, it is so great to see so many of you here who look so young and so ready to give everything you need to give to one of the most important issues of our time, and that is transfer. And you will see why I believe that to be the case. So I'm going to look for the clicker. Here we go. And so I just wanted to start off by giving you a sense of something that has really sort of helped me over the years, these long years, in terms of do what you can with what you have wherever you are. Because there's never enough budget, there's never enough time, there's never enough human resources, but we do have to be committed to, in fact, working hard and working for students. So I just wanted to give you a sense that I've been wearing bow ties a very long time. That is me at my first birthday party. And one of the reasons I love this photo is because as I'm getting older, I'm looking more and more like my dad, at least when I look in the mirror. But the world was very different when this photo was taken in 1954. And I am not sure that my father, who was a barber, knew that his son, that I would have the opportunity to go to college. In 1954, only 9% of men and 6% of women in the US had college degrees. At that point, my father did not know that the US population would grow in my lifetime from 171 million to over 370 million, and that in my lifetime, that the percentage of Latinos in the United States would grow from 2% to 23%. Nor did he know that Latinas would have the names like Rebecca Rose Stokes and Molly Ann Goodman, the names of his granddaughters. And I share that with you because I do want to tell my story, and it is not my story, it is my family story. I want to give you a sense of how community colleges in particular, how transfer admission has played into the life of a family, a first-generation college family, a family where my mother immigrated from Mexico and my father moved to California to work in the fields from New Mexico. This is a photo of my two sisters as we were eating tamales, and those two young women I mentioned before, Molly Ann Goodman and Rebecca Rose Lafferty. So very quickly, let me give you a sense, and I want you to think about your own families and the way in which college, community college, and transfer has played its role. First, my sister Alicia Hortensia at the very end took a very different path. She was a mother, a young mother at 15 and a half years old, but it was at community college, and she used community college to get her GED. My sister Sylvia, who was on the other side of me as we are eating, has a story that is so much more typical today than it was even back then in the 70s. She did coursework at San Jose City College, then at San Jose State University, then went to Colorado to join my other sister and was at the University of Colorado, then transferred to Colorado State University in Fort Collins, joined the military, and completed her education at Boise State University, graduating at age 41 with her two daughters, who you see there in the audience. Then I took a very different path. I went to a four-year institution, although looking back at that, at the end of my freshman year, hitchhiked, which one could do at that time, from Palo Alto, California to Santa Cruz, California, investigating transfer admission to the University of California. Maybe I had an inkling that one day I would become the Dean of Admissions at Stanford and should stay there, but with that said, transfer enters the minds, I think, of most college students today. Then my two nieces, Rebecca, who got her GED and went to Idaho State University, and then transferred to the University of Idaho. And then next to her in the Navy outfit, Molly, who got her GED. After the military, went to Mesa College in San Diego, and then to San Diego State to study business. And she is now a CPA. So I wrote to Molly this weekend and said, I've been given this great opportunity to speak before professionals who think about transfer. You are a success story. What are your thoughts? And here's what she wrote me. Uncle Jim, two things stand out in my mind when thinking about my successful transfer from Mesa Community College to San Diego State University. The first was meeting regularly with my counselor at Mesa and creating an education plan. The education plan showed me that classes that I needed to complete and to meet the requirements for transferring to San Diego State University and the correct order in which to take them. Having a plan is so important, especially when missing a required class that is only offered once a year can mean a setback in terms of staying on a semester longer. In my opinion, time is the enemy of the transfer student. The longer a student stays at community college, the less chances they have, perhaps, of transferring out. I was lucky enough to have an amazing counselor who never let me get off track. The second was San Diego State University's Transfer Admission Guarantee TAG program. TAG guaranteed my admission into San Diego State, and once I completed a specific list of courses at Mesa, all of which were built into my educational plan. In one sentence, I can attribute my success to the partnership between Mesa and San Diego State University, and learning about the partnership from my counselor and planning. I'll throw in a little hard work too for a good measure. I think that that is such an insightful comment because it really just speaks to the practicality of what we need to be doing on one level with students who are prepared, who are eager, and just need guidance and a plan, as well as a sense of transparency as to what is needed. So one of the things that was mentioned by Alfred, just in terms of the long association we've had, my long association with education, but one of my mentors at Stanford, John Gardner, in one of his many books, wrote, "Your identity is what you've committed yourself to." And one of the reasons I wanted to be here today is because you have committed yourself to an incredible endeavor, changing the lives of students. Some students are 18, some students are 28, some students are 58. And it's exciting to know that you as a collective are here and can learn from one another. Now, that is me as a young admission officer, and I told Alfred, I said, Alfred, the only way I will speak is if you use that photo of me, and he didn't, so I am. I just give you a sense of who I was then, because this has been a long journey. And I want those of you who still have hair, some of you who still have mustaches, some of you who are young and eager to know that this is a journey to which you need to be committed. I did choose this because I wanted you to see that I still am wearing bow ties in midlife there as well. But this is my path. And each of these paths, or each of this has been really important to me. The path of starting off as a counselor at Occidental College, where I had the opportunity of working in transfer admission. Because believe it or not, in the 70s, transfer admission was not considered to be a position that needed a lot of expertise. Energy, perhaps, but not necessarily expertise. And often it was the youngest admissions officer who was given transfer. I was thinking about the fact that my first transfer admit was a gentleman by the name of Rick Cole from American University, who transferred to Occidental, who ultimately became the mayor of Pasadena, California, and is currently the city manager of Santa Monica. That's what happens when you're given an opportunity to speak like this. You go back and you look to see, where are those students that I admitted? Then had the opportunity of going to Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York, a huge change for someone who had been raised in California, had spent quite a bit of his youth in Mexico, to move to Poughkeepsie, New York. But one of the most exciting aspects of Vassar is a program called Exploring Transfer. Are any of you familiar with Exploring Transfer? It is a great program. It is a program, when I was there at Vassar, that brought students from LaGuardia Community College and Poughkeepsie Community College, or Dutchess Community College, to Vassar College to spend 6 weeks during the summer to explore the opportunities of a liberal arts education with the hope that they would transfer. But what I loved about this program when I was involved is that the students who were selected were not those on the transfer path. They were students who were on paths that would necessarily lead to an AA degree, but also these were students who just did not assume that they would go on to a 4-year institution. How exciting to see how successful they were. But when I got to Stanford as Dean of Admissions in the 90s, one of the things that struck me when I arrived at my office and I looked at the profile of the incoming class that I had not admitted, but that I would welcome, was how few community college students there were among the 150 transfer students. And right away, I knew that we had an opportunity at a place like Stanford to send a more important message to community colleges, that being community college students are welcome. And my very first meeting was with community college leaders in the Bay Area to let them know that by working more closely together, we would have the opportunity to increase the number of community college students and to make very clear to those students who chose community college, where community college was their destination of choice, that they would have the opportunity to at least apply for transfer admission and be given serious consideration. And Steve Handel mentioned my work at the College Board. That was a big leap for me. No one leaves the Bay Area, and no one leaves Stanford. But what I knew was that there was so much more work to do, and that the work of the College Board, which was very broad, might give me that opportunity. And certainly the concept of community colleges and transfer, as Steve mentioned in his introduction of me, is something that has been incredibly important. I share this with you because, again, I just want to give you a sense that your work is just beginning. It is a path, one that allows you to grow, gain expertise, and as a result, be able to have, hopefully, greater impact. I'm counting on that now that I'm 64. Here we go. So, Tomas Lavetta, those of you who know me know that I was inspired by him. Many of you know he was the first Latino chancellor of the University of California, Riverside, within that system. One of the things that's important for you to know was that he was a transfer student. He started off at South Texas Community College and then transferred to Southern. It was called Southern Junior College at that time, and then transferred to Southwest State University. But what he says is this, and what he believed is this, and what I know we believe is this: education remains the surest route to permanent empowerment in this country. And I want you to keep looking at that slide as we think about where we are today. Much of this you know, but I think it's important that we at least, as the title of this talk is, Speak the Truth. This is the truth. Community colleges enroll nearly half of all undergraduates in the US. Community colleges are the largest segment of the higher education in this nation. Students from underserved groups are more likely to begin at a community college than a 4-year college. The majority of first-time community college students who wish to transfer and earn a bachelor's degree, and again, depending on the survey, it can be anywhere from 60% to 80%. That's a significant number of students who enter with the intention or the vision of transferring to a 4-year institution. Despite the overwhelming interest in transfer, Most community college students do not transfer. Depending on the study that you cite, the number is as low as 14%, but in general, probably somewhere between 25 and 33%. Again, this is of those students who enter community college with the aspiration of transferring. The low transfer rate implications for emerging populations is something that you think about, I know, and that we all need to be thinking about. All those students from underserved groups enroll in community college in larger numbers, they are less likely to transfer and earn a 4-year degree. These are important to our future. Community college enrollment is predicted to increase with in some communities, and I'll talk about that especially. But community colleges do serve as an opportunity for students to engage in higher education at a price that seems reasonable. And despite the increasing importance of community college and the need for a strong transfer pathway, 4-year colleges and universities are often not as comfortable or in a position to recruit 2-year community college students. It's so much easier to recruit a cohort of high school seniors. It's less complicated in many respects, and yet what we do know is that as we move forward in time, that 4-year schools will have to depend more on community colleges. Declining high school rates, especially in the Midwest and the Northeast, means that 4-year colleges and universities will need to explore new enrollment models. And one of these models should be increased attention, of course, to recruiting students from community colleges. But as I said, it is challenging. Community college students do not graduate in cohorts like high school students, and there are few national mechanisms to systematically identify and encourage college students to prepare for transfer to 4-year institutions. And this is why I'm here today. I believe that organizations like the College Board are in a good position to be able to have a positive impact. I have 2 colleagues who are here, Suzanne McGurk and Wendell Hall, and I hope that you will get to know them during these next few days. And I'm also pleased to say that Steve Handel will be returning to the College Board in a higher ed leadership position starting in March. He left the University of California to come to the College Board. He returned to the University of California, and now it is the College Board's good fortune that we get him back. So Steve, could not be happier to have you as a colleague. Now, I want to put all of this in a much broader context. What was suggested but not shared with you is I have a very long title, and I'm going to share it with you because I think you'll understand why I'm heading where I am at this very moment. So my title is the Chief of Governance, Membership, and Global Higher Education, and Secretary of the Corporation. Therefore, I have to think big, and I believe you have to think big, because you are involved in something that is much bigger than just simply a student transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year or a 4-year to a 4-year, and we'll get to that in a minute. We live in a big world with forces that are shaping it that I want you to be thinking about. Immigration and migration, innovation, saturation, transparency, globalization, and personalization. These are big ideas, but they all relate to your work. And just on the plane this morning, I was reading about NACAC's new statement regarding transfer admission. And one of its focus areas is transparency, the need for greater transparency, that students have a clear sense of that path. Getting back to Molly's comments as she's reflecting on why she was successful in the transfer process, she knew what to do, what she needed to do, and when she needed to do it. Also, you're a part of something big, because you're in higher education. And this is something that I want you to be thinking about. In 1960, I can say not all that long ago, 1960, worldwide, there were 13 million students enrolled in higher education. In 1995, 35 years later, that 13 moved to 82 million. By 2010, it was 178 million. So 13 million to 82 million to 178 million. And in 2025, which is only 7 years from now, worldwide enrollment and participation in higher education is expected to be 262 million. So you are a part of something that is growing very quickly, and something that will continue to grow, and something that will be much more global in nature. Over lunch, I was asking Alfred and Steve about your interest in international students, given the fact that there are growing numbers of international students at two-year schools. I'm going to show you a chart in just a minute, and the complexity that it adds, quite honestly, to the transfer process. Often just given special challenges that international students face as it relates to visas and so forth, but also because of expectations they have when coming over to the United States in terms of what their opportunities will be. There's an article that I would like you to think about reading called "An Avalanche is Coming: Higher Education and the Revolution Ahead," written by Sir Michael Barber, who has been a wonderful thinker on higher education and a wonderful consultant to the College Board. He writes, "Just as globalization and technology have transformed other huge sectors of the economy in the past 20 years, in the next 20 years, universities face transformation." I believe that transfer is a part of that transformation, and therefore it is important for you to understand that your work is, in fact, on the cutting edge. He ends the report by saying, "In the new world, the learner will be in the driver's seat with a keen eye, trained on value." So it should not surprise you that in 2015, a report by the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center found that 37.2% of college students change schools at least once within 6 years. And of these, 45% change their institutions more than once. Students are willing to transfer to find this value, whether it be from a 2-year college to a 4-year school, a 2-year college to another 2-year college, a 4-year college to another 4-year college, a 4-year college to a 2-year college, or being co-enrolled in more than one institution at a time. I am here to tell you that your job is secure. Life is just starting for us. And I think, while we could say it's going to become more complicated, I think it's going to become much more interesting. I wanted to show you this slide because it speaks to this global picture of those who have an associate's degree or higher. And the one thing I want you to note is that when you look at the US in this, the red arrow there, what it suggests is that the cohort that is older has achieved at the same level as the younger cohort. And when you look at countries like Korea, for example, you can see that the younger cohort has a much higher percentage of participation in higher education. This is not good for the United States. And one of the reasons why we have to invest more heavily in making certain that students who start college complete their AA degrees, if not their BA degrees. It is so key. But this chart tells a story that is not a good one for us and speaks to why our work in transfer admission is incredibly important. Just as a side note, by 2020, China will account for 29% of all university graduates in the world aged 25 to 34. Steve and I have spent quite a bit of time in China. We know the investment they are making in higher education, but that number, 29% worldwide, being Chinese, of those between the ages of 25 and 34, is remarkable. In absolute numbers, that will mean that there are more Chinese college graduates in that age group as in the entire US workforce. We must be focused on getting more of our students to transfer successfully and to earn their degrees. I'm going to move us very quickly through a series of slides, but I think this is relevant information for you and reinforces the fact that your work in transfer fits into a much broader global context. One, here we are seeing that the number of international students applying and enrolling in US institutions for associate degrees continue to grow. However, the proportion of international students studying for associate degrees has declined slightly. But still, we are seeing increased numbers, and international students, we hope, will continue to come to this country. I know in general this year we experienced a decline in undergraduates in this country. All of us who work in higher education hope that this is temporary, hope that the United States will continue to be seen as a welcoming environment for our international students. This is just a quick, I thought you'd be interested to see where most international students who are going for their AA degrees, community colleges, are finding themselves, not surprising, the East Coast, the West Coast, growing numbers in the South. With that said, it's also important for us to really look at the changes we have seen in our own population in the United States, particularly from the lens of ethnicity. And we see that there are a higher proportion of Hispanic Latinos, but overall we are seeing a reduction in the number of students enrolling. This is consistent with many articles that you have read. We have to be working harder to have more students see community colleges and college as an opportunity that welcomes them. These declining numbers do not speak well for our future, and quite honestly, speaks to the fact that we must be much more focused in our work in encouraging greater numbers of students through the educational pipeline, which I will get to in just a minute. All of this is happening, and again, I know you're familiar with this, but it's worth mentioning, with pressures on higher education. Cost and funding, well, you can just go down the list. None of this is going to surprise you, but cost and funding being at the top of higher education and K-12. These are all pressures that we are facing. At the same time, we are wanting to embrace a greater diversity of students and to be able to support students, particularly in the 2-year to 4-year transfer process. I take note in K-12 of counselor ratios. The fact is, most counselors in our secondary schools are simply overwhelmed by the sheer number of students they have to work with. And as a result, students graduate from high school perhaps not having as clear of a sense of that pathway for college success as they should. I want to go back to this. Do what you can with what you have wherever you are. Because quite honestly, you have to use what you have in order to have an impact. And for me, that work is at the College Board. I know many of you think of the College Board as simply SAT or AP, but I hope you will walk away from this gathering, understanding that it is much more. It is an organization that is focused on issues of access and equity and success and clearing a pathway to better serve students. And you can see wherever we are able to use the word students, we do. It is not enough to measure student performance. We need to improve it and ensure that more students enter higher education ready to succeed and complete. And I will tell you the one message that any of you who have heard me speak before have heard come from me is this notion that college is college, whether it be 2-year or 4-year. This notion that college ready is not just for 4-year schools. Being college ready is important whether a student is going to enroll in 2-year or 4-year. And you must help us reinforce that notion. All too often, you hear that expression, oh, he or she is just going to community college. They do not need that course. That is just not the case. Students need to be college ready, and preparing them to do so, propelling them to do so, giving them the information that they need, reaching out to students. What we have found, particularly with low-income students, is that low-income students, in spite of having great preparation, do not know what their options are. We have to be working harder. And of course, we have to be thriving, investing in our people and culture. And by that, I am talking about us as educators. Very quickly, I just want to share a few things that we have done that I am particularly proud of. Sharing information, not only on admission, but on scholarships. Finances are the biggest reason why students transfer. Money is on the minds of students and families, and here we do our best to share top-rate information on scholarships, as well as colleges' transfer policies. We focus on 1,500 community colleges. We want to make certain that we provide transfer profiles of both 2-year and 4-year schools, and we want to make certain that this is free to students. Students are not in a position often, especially our low-income first-generation students, to spend a lot of money on something that is important. And it's really important that we do everything we can to use our resources wherever we are to make certain that high-quality information is provided to students. Very quickly, to tell you about the new SAT and our partnership with Khan Academy, because here again, offering world-class test practice in an effort to give all students the opportunity to better prepare for college, to be college ready, and not at a cost. I think that there's too much of a sense among our families that in order to do well in the college admission process, whether it be to a 2-year or a 4-year, that it's a costly effort. Organizations like the College Board must do everything we can to send the message that we will invest our money in you, students, because we believe in you. And this partnership with Khan Academy and the College Board, I think, is one of the most powerful and serves as an example of the kinds of partnerships that serve students well. Starting, just for your information, with 2018-19 school year, high school students can take the SAT and the SAT subject tests, apply for fee waivers, as well as use this as an opportunity for unlimited score sends to colleges and universities, even when in fact they are in community college applying to 4-year institutions. And you may be thinking, Jim's out of touch here, SAT, community colleges, transfer. I will tell you, as I was telling my colleagues, with the new structure of the SAT, take a look at it. You're going to see that greater percentages of students enrolling in community college will have taken the SAT, and that valuable information is going to be useful to them as they focus their attention on being ready for that 4-year transfer. So here we are again with this notion of do what you can with what you have wherever you are. But I add to that with who you are. And Alfred, you mentioned that in your introduction of me. It's about who we are. The reason that I was so excited about being at this conference with you is because of who you are. And I guarantee you that the power of this conference is really driven by you through your interactions with your colleagues, through learning about best practices, inspiring you to give everything you can, particularly to this endeavor that we call transfer. You are at the cutting edge. As I mentioned to you before, it's going to take incredible leadership to help our colleagues understand not only the complexity of this work, but as important, the opportunity that this work gives us to change students' lives. And with that, I would be happy to take questions. What questions do you have? How much time do I have, Steve? 3 minutes. At least one question. Come on. One question. Please, tell me who you are.
So let me just clarify something that you showed here. So community college transfer students will have access to a fee waiver for the SAT when they're applying to 4 years?
No. So the students who will take the SAT in high school will have access while they are in community college. But you raise a really important question. And just to let you know that this is something that we are thinking through at the College Board in terms of how we better serve our community college students. And clearly, what you are suggesting is this notion of fee waivers for our lowest income. We have a pilot program right now, just to let you know, and it is something that we are looking at very carefully. But what I can say is that those students who are taking the SAT as high school seniors will continue to have this program available to them in terms of unlimited sends or score sends should they decide to apply to a 4-year institution once in community college.
It's a huge need, and as admissions and transfer counselors, we have access to give the fee waivers for the admissions process, but that SAT test taking is a huge barrier for students, and we have access to their Pell eligibility, so that could be a function that they can do as well to help with that process, and how you can utilize us to smooth that and have access. It's one thing to have access, but those opportunities are still not there because of these federal limitations. So there's a way that utilizes us here at home to help with that. It's just a friendly suggestion.
Good. And I really appreciate that. And let me ask you this, if you'll give me your card before you leave, and just know that it's only through these kinds of opportunities and these kinds of partnerships that we are going to have the opportunity of impacting the lives of students in the way that we wish to. So with that, just let me say thank you. Have an incredible conference, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Jim, thank you very much for sharing your family stories, your personal story, helping us to remember that the community college serves as an amazing gateway to education for our transfer students, the importance of the transfer function, and most importantly, that our jobs are secure. Thank you. All right. I know what it means to lose this thing now, just like you did. All right, well, all of you received, as part of your registration materials, our latest publication from NISTS. This serves as the second volume that we have published in the last 3 years, titled Transition and Transformation, New Research Fostering Transfer Student Success. And again, it's the second volume really chronicling some of our proceedings from our conference. And as you can imagine, putting something like this together and shepherding the process in the voices of multiple authors is not an easy task. And we were very pleased to have the opportunity to have Drs. Eileen Strimple and Stephen Handel serve again as the editors of this volume. So if you don't mind at this moment, if we could please recognize Steve Handel and Eileen Strimple for their efforts, amazing efforts to put this book forward. Eileen had to step out, but you can see her throughout the course of the conference. But again, just tell her thank you. And because this was a gift, some things in life are never really free, right? So our gift to you is in hopes that you will take this, read it cover to cover, and then go straight to your Amazon file or your Amazon account and review this book for us. Because your colleagues won't take a chance on this publication to learn about the importance of transfer research and what is going on in the world of transfer without you encouraging them to do so. So please take a look at it, utilize it with your colleagues, and then find a way to spread the love and let folks know that this is an opportunity for them to pursue as well. So thank you. Steve, I'm going to borrow you once again. We're going to just move into the Vanna phase. And at this time, we would like to move into our honors and our awards. NISTS has a long history of recognizing those in transfer through our awards program, and today is no exception. We'll be recognizing our Bonita C. Jacobs Transfer Champions, our Research Award winners, and our National Transfer Student Ambassadors with us this afternoon. So I encourage you to turn in your programs over to page, let's see, we're going to be starting in the vicinity, I think, around page 4 or 5, just so you get a little bit more sense of who these outstanding individuals are as they are called to the stage, knowing that our time is limited. We will not be sharing their bios with you, but they are there in full for your perusal. So at this point in time, I would like to start with our Bonita C. Jacobs Transfer Champions. Let me tell you a little bit about this award. The Catalyst Award recognizes professionals who are game changers in the transfer field and have worked overtime to make significant contributions to institutional, regional, and/or state-level transfer efforts. The awardees that we're going to introduce you to this afternoon demonstrate evidence of leadership, appropriate risk-taking, and disrupting the status quo, along with using relevant research and theoretical frameworks to develop programs and services for transfer students. They assure the sustainability of their initiatives by developing staff and using data to make improvement. When you read their bios, you'll see that they attribute their success to their teams as well, but in every successful team, there's an amazing leader. These are individuals that have worked dedicated to transfer over time, and I cannot wait to introduce them to you. So, with no further ado, I would like to introduce our first transfer catalyst, Barbara Diarra Lerner. Coming with us today. She is the, well, hold your applause for just 30 seconds while I tell you where she's coming to us from. You please come forward, and Steve is going to present you, and if you don't mind waiting, I'm holding on the stage for your colleagues to join you. She's the Vice Provost, Undergraduate Studies and Academic Partnerships, and Associate Professor of Teacher Education at Texas Woman's University in Denton, Texas. Oh, we'll do it in a minute. We're going to do pictures a little bit later. Yeah. Our second recipient today is Lisa McIntyre. Lisa is the Executive Director of Advising and Student Advancement and an adjunct faculty member in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College Higher Education Program at Arizona State University. Let me introduce you to Lisa McIntyre. Our third and final transfer catalyst today is Nancy Lee Sanchez. Nancy is the Executive Director of the Kaplan Educational Foundation, and you may have seen her as one of our keynote speakers last year. Nancy Sanchez. Again, these women have worked tirelessly on behalf of transfer students across the country. We are grateful for the work you do both at the state, the national, the regional levels. Your work is not going unnoticed. Congratulations. All right, we'll have you just step over that way. You're good to go. No, they're good. They're good. And are there steps over there? Do I need to funnel them back this way? Okay, you ladies are fine to go right ahead. We're going to shift gears to the Champion Rising Star category. The Rising Star Award recognizes individuals who are making significant contributions in the earlier stages of their careers, creating or improving programming that is responsive to the specific transfer student population and shows success in their work. These individuals are aware of best practices and theoretical frameworks, as well as the need to assess their efforts and to use this to improve programming. They use their strong communication and collaboration skills to educate others on their campus about transfer students and are not afraid to challenge the status quo. This year's recipient of the Rising Star Transfer Champion Award is Holly Herrera. And Holly is the coordinator of transfer advising at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Holly, once again, as you continue in your career, we're looking forward to watching you blossom and continue your success in the transfer arena. Congratulations. NISTS awards research grants to encourage creative and scholarly work related to transfer and original research supported through our research grants. Today's award is going to a project entitled, let me get this right for you all, Examining Vertical and Horizontal Transfer Student Experiences and Identity Development at Four-Year Institutions in Texas. And if I could invite the co-principal investigators to the stage, please. Catherine Hartman, who is a graduate research assistant in the Center for Community College Student Engagement at the Charles A. Dana Center, University of Texas at Austin, and also Jeffrey Mayo, Senior Academic Program Coordinator, University of Texas at Austin. And I love this collaboration because we see that there are all facets across campus that can be working in partnership to really understand our students and understand exactly how we can better look at our transfer students and what they're experiencing. So we're anxious to see what comes about from your study. So congratulations. We are in the second year of our National Transfer Student Ambassador Program, and this is a competition that is nationally competitive, and these individuals were selected in order to recognize their outstanding students who represent the heart of what we do. Nominees were asked to submit a letter of recommendation, a resume, and a written and/or video response describing their transfer journey, advocacy efforts on behalf of transfers, and how their personal interests match opportunity. I really wish, well, we'll find a way for y'all to see these videos because they were pretty darn outstanding. If you haven't also visited our website to read their blogs, their journeys are tremendous. All four of our winners demonstrated excellence in leadership, public speaking, and their potential for sharing meaningful information with those of us in this room, higher education professionals. So if I could ask them to come to the stage one at a time. First, we have Diana Castro, who is a senior political, and we'll hold our applause with this group. So a senior political science major at the University of California, Berkeley.
Go Bears! Go Bears!
All right, if you have an affinity, you can put the love out there. I think that's great. Brandon Cheatham is a senior health science major at Stockton University in Southeast New Jersey. I know we have some Stockton folks in the room. It's okay. Woo woo. It's all good. Veronica Sanders is a senior interior design major at the University of Texas at Arlington. There we go. Hey, self-advocacy is a good thing in transfer students, let me tell you. And Luis Velos is a senior government major and a Jack Kent Cooke Scholar at the University of Texas at Austin. Now, as part of their award, we put them to work. And already this morning, they have spent time in a pre-conference workshop really helping professionals in that program really see what it's like from a student's perspective. And I think there was some eye-opening experiences from the students to really understand what we go through as professionals, that we don't just kind of come up with these things on the fly, and we don't just exactly expect them to work every single time, and that there is some method to our madness. So it was really, I enjoyed talking with you all a little while ago about where's that intersectionality between, okay, we're planning as professionals, they're experiencing as students. So we have asked them to be available for you throughout, and you'll see, meet the ambassadors, and they'll be available at the registration area. We encourage you to come, ask them questions about your programs and what it might be, allow them to give you feedback on some of your ideas. Get to know them better. If you have opportunities in the future for internships and fun things like that, they might be interested in hearing a few of those things. They are all graduating seniors and are going to be looking for different opportunities. So we couldn't be more proud of you. You're representing so many students across this country, and you're doing so beautifully. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you, Steve. Well, I wish I had a drum roll for this next announcement, because it's something, well, thank you. I like this. The advisory board responds when asked. Because this big announcement I have to offer to you today is that this August, NISTS and the University of North Georgia will launch a graduate level certificate program for experienced educational professionals like all of you in this room who hold a master's degree and who are interested in seeking to develop their expertise around transfer leadership and student success. So we're very excited to be offering the only credit-bearing graduate certificate program in the country, and we invite you to learn a little bit more about it. Each of you has a postcard that looks remarkably like that one, as well as this one. In your folders, we will have a full website up next week, but this is just our opportunity to say that our commitment to that study of transfer, lives on in this 12-hour certificate program, and we'd be happy to visit with you about some of those opportunities that'll be coming up over the course of the next couple of months and years. All right. Whoops, I need to do a couple of thank yous before we go into that one right there. NISTS is guided by an advisory board that kind of keeps us in line, forces us to stretch a little bit, but more than importantly, supports us in the efforts that we bring to all of you. It's comprised of national experts from across the country. I encourage you to look on page 4 of your program to see their shiny faces, and I encourage you throughout the time at the conference to catch them in the hall. Many of them are presenting programs, facilitating panels, doing plenary sessions. They are your resources to a lot of these things, these challenges that we're facing, and better understanding what it is that perhaps is happening across the country. They're great resources for you. Please, if I could get our advisory board members to stand to be recognized for one moment, I would appreciate that. I'm doing so at this time. A little shiny, but it's okay. It's all good, yes. It takes an enormous team effort, obviously, to put on a conference like this, and I would like to personally thank the NISTS staff members. We've got Laura DuBois out in the hall, which she never gets to be recognized, but you saw her at check-in today. We've got Judith Brower and also Emily Kittrell in the front here. Our student staff are also doing their duties out there, but just say hello to Kristen Siswiski, as well as, and I butchered her last name and I swore I wouldn't, and Jackson Newell, and then also members of our Orientation and Transition Programs Office from the University of North Georgia are here today. They are here to be of service to you throughout your time. Hospitality is really important to us, and we want to make sure that your conference experience from learning as well as the logistic experience is a really good one. So thank you, team, for making this a reality. And I would also like to direct your attention to our conference sponsors. This, again, is not an endeavor that is something that can be done alone, and we really rely on one another to be able to persist. You'll find that your vendors this conference are really accessible. They're available to you right out in the hall here, and I would just like to thank the following organizations for their support. The National Association for College Admission Counselors, or NACAC, Tau Sigma Honor Society, who has been with us every single year, and we're grateful for their continued partnership. The National Student Clearinghouse, College Source, Kaplan Educational Foundation, Advantage Design Group, EAB, and Logo ED. Can you please give them a round of applause? Finally, I'd like to thank our educational partners as well. We really feel like partnership is at the key in the center of transfer endeavors, whether it be intra or inter-institutional partnerships. We do it from an association standpoint. So NOTA, the Association for Orientation, Transition, and Retention, the National Resource Center for First-Year Experience and Students in Transition, the Gardner Institute, and NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising, our educational partners. So we're really excited that this year we're looking to do a little something different tomorrow afternoon. And you will see in your bag, you've got some really cool little AHA cards. You don't have to get them out, but they're blue. And you know, you're going to be sitting in those sessions, and some of these speakers are going to just say something that gets you really excited, and you're going to have a light bulb moment, right? You're going to have a light bulb moment. You're going to take that light bulb moment and put it on this card, or potentially tweet it to one of these two addresses here, and let us know what those aha moments are. Because our partners at the Education Design Labs is going to distill this information, and we're going to take you on a journey to not only hopefully take what you've learned as part of this conference, synthesize it, and be ready to do something with it before you go home. So often we're just passive learners at conferences. This is our opportunity to be active, engaged, and fired up about what we're learning at this conference. So please utilize these. You can leave these in your sessions with your evaluations, or you may put them in there's a box on the registration table, but please let us know your aha moments so we can incorporate them into a really dynamic program for tomorrow afternoon, and we encourage you all to come and be a part of that. Throughout our time together, we'd love for you to let us know what you're feeling about what you're seeing, challenge, ask questions, have some dialogue, but this is where you need to do it so that other folks can follow along, those who are perhaps not here, who want to be here and would like to be a part of the conversation as well. Fortunately, all the activities that we're doing at the conference are located here on this conference level of the Lowe's, which is very convenient. The majority of everything is here, but tonight's reception as well as tomorrow's lunch may take a few breadcrumbs, but if you go outside this and follow around the corner, you will end up on the other side of the building. There are a few salon rooms right over here. A lot of them, the other rooms are past the elevator bank and then along this wall. But again, there is this map in the back of your program. You can look around and see that there's a full house. We've got a lot of folks here, like I said, 500 strong, and we have lots to learn. What that means is that there is likelihood that our sessions will fill up. If there is a particular session you are dying to be a part of, get there early. We will and have been asked to close the doors when capacity is met in those rooms. So there won't be extra chairs that we can be bringing in. But the good news is that there's always a great B, C, and D option, and F and G and H at this particular conference. So we hope that you have a chance to get into your first session option, but if not, be flexible and learn from your colleagues and maybe divide and conquer. The last thing I want to say is for those of you who have brought teams with you, congratulations. This is a team effort. Transfer is going to take communication across our campuses, across our institutions, across our states and regions. And I just encourage you to have those conversations now and throughout the conference with those people that you brought with you, such that they can take that back to their campuses and you all can truly affect change. We appreciate you being here. We're excited to learn with and from you. Have a fantastic conference, and we'll see you this evening at the reception.